Welcome back, everybody. So I wanted to do something fun today, and I wanted to talk about dating life. And as you may have already noticed from my last video, I do have a boyfriend. I am in a committed, monogamous. I don't know if that counts as because Gami is like being married, but I don't know. I'm loyal to one person at the moment, and I wanted to talk about dating because it was like one of the most awkward things I had to do when I left my family and when I lost my religion, and I really, really wanted to talk about it because I focus so much on like the negative things that have happened in my life because I cycle them around in my head so much. Um, I just wanted to maybe highlight some of the more weirder, funner, happier things that I've done since, you know, discarding that part of my life. I think that's very important to focus on, and I would like to do that this week or in this video, depending on whether or not I make a video this Sunday. Although it seems quite popular with you guys since you keep asking me to do more videos. So I wanted to talk about specifically 5 different guys that I dated before meeting my current partner. Whether or not I'm going to tell the story of the first time I met him is debatable. I'll see how long this video is. I think this is going to be a long one because I have to tell 5 stories as well as answer your questions. So, you know, grab a glass of wine or pretend, kick back, relax, and listen to my stories. So most of these stories come out of Tinder, because that is the dating app I used after I broke up with my first boyfriend. My first boyfriend was a long distance, it was a completely long distance relationship. He was in the US, I was in the UK. I will make a completely separate video about long distance relationships and whether or not I think they can work. But I never actually dated him. It was all online. All of our conversations were online. All of our like dates or things we did together were online. So I don't count it as like true dating. I did post a tweet that I almost got married twice before I had my first date. My first kiss was when I was about 21. I had sex for the first time when I was 21. I drank for the first time when I was 20. A lot of things happened when I was 21. It was a few months before I turned 22 that all of that happened. And that was all with my first boyfriend, that all those things happened. The first time I dated was after I broke up with him, and we were supposed to get married so that I could move to the US, but that's a whole other story, which I will tell at a later time, should you want to hear it. My apologies. So there were a lot of interesting people I met through Tinder. Tinder was something I used shortly after I broke up with my ex because he broke up with me over a tattoo I got, which I may have mentioned before. So I was pretty upset. I think I waited about a month because when you're doing the whole long distance thing, you don't really get to cuddle a lot. I met him once physically for the first time for 2 weeks in 2000 and I believe 2017. If I'm wrong, please correct me. It was either 2016 or 2017 that I met him. I met him for 2 weeks. We spent Christmas and New Year's together. And that was it. That was the only physical contact I had with him. The rest of the time, it was all online. So I had not had physical contact with another human being in a romantic way for about a year and a little bit since I had with him. So I was really upset by that because I had been holding out on everything because of him, and I just wanted to do stupid, dumb things with another man. So I had joined Tinder and I had started using it as a dating app, and I met a lot of weird people through it, a lot of interesting people through it as well. And I learnt a lot of things about myself and what I like in terms of dating, in terms of men. I learnt my personal biases about what I absolutely don't want in a partner. I learnt that I am willing to travel very far distances to meet people just to see them. And I learnt that I don't really like people paying for me on dates. And maybe that's to do with my first ex, who insisted on paying for everything and then holding me accountable because he paid for everything. But yeah, I definitely got all my sillies out after I left my family and Indians, and I'll get to this later because I don't want to answer all of your questions while I'm telling these stories, so I will save all of that for later. I just want to tell these stories for now, and I will get the stories will get progressively weirder as we go down the list. So I'm going to start with number 5, and then we're going to move to 4, 3, 2, 1. You know the drill. And there's one honorable mention that I would like to say. Some of these people I didn't actually meet, I just spoke to for a very, very long time. Of this list, I've met, out of the 5, I've met 3, not including the honorable mention. So, I'll start with number 5, and we're going to call him the depressed guy. We're just going to call him DP, or the depressed guy. He was one of the last people I was speaking to / dated before I met my current boyfriend, Ed. And he was really sweet. He was very intellectual. I really got on with him. We visited the similar places, like similar pubs. We had a lot of shared interests. He was just really, really depressed, and he would make dates for me to meet up with him, and then he would cancel in the last minute. And honestly, I just got sick of waiting. We became very intimate, but mostly over the phone. We never got physically intimate. But I was very, very interested in him, and I always felt really bad talking to other people because I felt like I owed it to him to at least meet him. But, you know, 1 month turned into 2, 2 months turned into 3. I got really, really frustrated with it because he was in a really bad place. He was going through a really bad, he was in a really bad job, and he wasn't coping with it, and I feel like he would use me as kind of his, like, emotional punching bag. He would just sort of not take his day out on me, but he needed that emotional consolation without the commitment of a relationship, and I think that's why he was talking to me. And I don't hold him accountable for that. I think that that is fine. I personally don't feel attacked or used in any way. I just wish that the terms were made clear. At that time when I was dating, I wasn't looking for anything serious. I was just looking to meet people and broaden my horizons because I had literally just been arranged to be married within my family, and then following that I was in a long distance relationship that I had broken off. So I just wanted to experiment and have fun and meet people. So I was not particularly upset that had happened. I was just frustrated with the situation, and I honestly didn't know how to handle it. I went to a friend many times, and she was like, you have no responsibility to this person. If you ever come across this kind of situation where someone is depending on you to sort of take care of them, in whether that's physically or in an emotional way, or even financially, there are people out there who will do that. Please know that it's not your responsibility to make sure that those people are okay. You can only do as much as you can. I know that that's kind of difficult to take into account, but honestly, being an empathetic person, I attract people like that. I attract people who want to be taken care of, essentially. And I'm a caregiver. That's my work. That has been my whole life. I've been a caregiver from day one. So I fall into it really quickly, and there's a lot of people out there who would use that. And I don't particularly think that the depressed guy in the story was using me. I think he just found me someone who was very easy to confide in. But it didn't work out, and, you know, he definitely wasn't the weirdest person I ever dated. The second person on my list, or in 4th place, is, we're going to call him Mac. Now, there was nothing wrong with Mac. Mac is a great guy. I actually wanted to date him. My interest in dating him stemmed from the fact that his picture on Tinder was him with a llama. That is why I wanted to date him. That was the only reason I wanted to date him. I was like, oh my gosh, he has had contact with a llama. I have to date him. What is my obsession with llamas? I love goats, I love llamas, I love sheep. They're like my favorite animal. And I was immediately drawn. It's the same if there's a dog in the picture with a guy. I don't care. That person, for some reason in my head, that picture with an animal conveys to me that you are responsible enough to handle an animal. And I know that's not always the case, but to me, that is what it screamed to me. And there was nothing wrong with Mac. I initially really liked Mac. He was very kind, very courteous, but I had to stop dating him. I had to stop talking to him. And the reason for me to stop dating him, or talking to him completely, was because he supported a team that I hated. Now, I don't follow sports. I have not followed sports since I was like 13. I stopped following sports because I took it way too seriously. But for some reason that I cannot explain to you, I am so loyal to the team that I no longer support that I still hate the team that I hated back when I was 13. And unfortunately, Mac supported this team. I'm not going to name and shame the team. I don't want to alienate anyone. I don't have any personal biases of making friends with people who support this team, but I could not fathom having someone in my life who actively supported that team. And there were loads of reasons for it. Okay, so I feel like I have to mention, I hate Tottenham. I hate Tottenham Hotspur. It's to me, I don't know why. I grew up, one side of my family, they supported either Arsenal or Tottenham Hotspur because we grew up around North London. So I was a big fan of Arsenal back in the day. I do not watch football anymore. I have no interest in football. You can slam Arsenal as much as you want now. I don't give a fuck. But when it comes to Tottenham, I don't know why. In my head, it's like, why the fuck would you support Tottenham, you know? And also, at that time, I was living in Wembley, and Wembley had become colonized, in my opinion, by Tottenham Hotspur, and he lived near that stadium so he could watch the game. So I was immediately like, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You support a team that I absolutely detest, and it was a bias I had not realized I had. And this was more weird on the part of me than it was on the part of him. So if you're watching, Mac, I apologize profusely. It's just in my head. In my head, it's like, you're going to annoy me for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life, I'm going to be, like, if this becomes a serious relationship, and this is how I was taking it. I was dating casually, but if something serious came out of it, I would treat it like a serious relationship. And to me, I was kind of like, if this becomes a serious relationship, I'm going to have to live with the knowledge that I am in love and actively loving someone who likes that team that I absolutely detest, who has taken over my home, and I have like, this is why I have told so many people, sport is like religion. Even when you leave it, you keep biases in your head. This is why I can't watch sports. I've actively stopped watching it because of how seriously I take it. I'm gonna move on to stories that no longer put me in like a bad light. I'm gonna move on to number 3. Actually, this story can go either way. This is a really interesting story. It's a really weird story. It definitely could have turned very dark, but it didn't, thankfully. I'm here. I'm alive. So one of my friends referred to this person as the Saint, mainly because I dated 2 guys with the same name, and she considered one worse than the other. So this one, she called the Saint. So this is what I'm going to call him throughout this video. Sorry. So I met the Saint through Tinder, and we were going to date casually. I think we initially met up to hook up, but it turned out to be a date. And I had travelled outside London into an area called High Wycombe to meet the Saint. And from the get-go, I knew what his favourite colour was. His favourite colour was bright red, because he had a bright red car. And initially I didn't see him because he was waiting in his car for me. And I don't know about you, but when I get into someone's car, I don't tend to observe them because I feel like it makes people nervous when you're doing that and they're driving. So I was just looking, it was a new area. I'd never been there before. I'd never been to High Wycombe before, so I was looking outside while he was driving me around. And because we had initially agreed to just hook up, I assumed that we were going to go to like a hotel or a house or a room somewhere. He drove me to a forest. Now, granted, High Wycombe is mostly forest. It's a very beautiful area. If you ever get to hike anywhere in England, High Wycombe is like very close to London and it's very pretty. But it's not exactly the best place to hook up. I was not dressed for this trek that he was going to take me on. And honestly, I became very worried. Because here was a man who I'd agreed to hook up with that had become a weird murder date, that he was just going to take me into a forest and do what with me, I didn't know. So there's a little bit before that. He gets out of the car, I join him, and I'm just looking around, I'm looking at all the things, and it's very pretty, and I was like, oh, this is really nice, I didn't expect this. And I look at him, and I realize that he's dressed really weird, and this is another bias that I have in my head. He was wearing a work outfit, so a standard office dress. So he was wearing a white shirt, black tie, black trousers, and bright red as my lips, bright red sneakers, running shoes, or trainers, whatever you want to call them. That's what he was wearing. That was his outfit. And I looked at him, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I cannot date someone who cannot dress. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I said this in the interview in our podcast Out of the Fold with Cole, and I cannot date someone that dresses like a toddler. I'm sorry. I am sorry, the Saint, if you are watching. I cannot date someone who dresses like you. Additionally, he didn't really have any interests in common with me. His only interest was going to the pub and watching sports. As we've mentioned before, I don't do too well with sports. And also, he was leading me into a forest. Our entire date was, he guided me through to the bottom of this forest. It was like a very steep forest as well. So it wasn't, and in my head I was thinking all of these things. If we go down, it's going to be a very tough climb up if I have to run out. So in my head I was like mentally drawing up a plan for how I would go back up. It was the first time that I had been near so many trees and like climbing down a hill. So I was following him, and we went down very, very far down. So I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I was like mentally preparing to fight. I was like so nervous, and he had gotten to the bottom, and I think he expected me to fuck him in the forest, which I was not ready for. And I kind of was just like, okay, this was fun, this was interesting, but I don't want to do this anymore. It was a really weird date, and honestly, I hope he's never done that to anyone else. He was kind of like, would you want to do this again? And I was like, yeah, we'll keep talking, we'll figure it out. I didn't really know how to base my judgment on him. All I knew is that I didn't like how he dressed, I didn't have much in common with him, and he took me to a forest, and I was terrified. It was the middle of summer as well, there were kids around. I don't know what he expected me to do. I wasn't going to have public sex with someone that I had just met in a forest where there were children, and I just didn't know what to think. This is all on camera. Someone who knows me is going to see this and think, what the fuck? But that was the saint. That was the saint. The guy who shared a name with him, he was worse. He was way worse. But I'm going to move on to the next person. We'll call him... what do we call him? We'll call him Racer, because he loved cars. So I had a very long date with Racer. He's number 2. We're moving our way down. After this will be the honorable mention, I think. Racer, he was a really nice guy. He had gotten out of a very serious relationship, just like me, about 5 months out of it, and he wasn't really like, he wasn't really interested in jumping into a new long-term relationship. But he was like me, he was kind of open to seeing where things go, and he was a really nice guy. He just said a lot of questionable things that I didn't... Okay, so let me describe the date. The date was really, really nice. Our entire date was us walking along a riverbank. It was very, very nice. It was a very interesting conversation. He told me about his work. He spoke a lot about himself. I'm more of a listener than a talker. I know I don't really come across as that in my videos, but I truly am. I'm more of a listener than a talker. And he would talk about his work, and he would talk about his family life, he would talk about his exes. And I like that. I like people who can open up about their past relationships, because my first boyfriend wouldn't do that ever, and I found out later how horrible he was to them. And he would do that, and I realised that he was an animal lover. He loved cats, he loved dogs, he had a parrot, he both had cats and dogs in his house. He had like 7 different animals. He was great, and there were just like a few things that I picked up on. He was a risk taker, which is a characteristic I try to avoid, because I fancy myself that. And I just think that having 2 risk takers in one relationship is a bad idea. So that was more of like a critical thing I had in my head. But he also said some very questionable things. Where we had the date was in Tottenham. Now, Tottenham is not a very, like, as you could probably tell, it's not my favourite place. It's quite dangerous in some areas. And we were in a lot of back streets at the beginning of the date, because I'd met him at the station there. And he said some stuff like he knew how to get a gun, and it's illegal to carry a gun here without a license. It is illegal to carry a gun, period, in London, I think. And he was saying how he knows people who could get him a gun off the black market, which is like a huge red flag. I'm like, I do not want to be involved with anyone who has a gun in London. Like, I'm sure it's pretty normal in other parts of the world, but in the UK, unless you are like a very avid hunter, which I am not interested in dating anyway, we don't have guns. So it's really bizarre for someone to say that. He also said something like, "Don't worry, I can protect you. I know how to take down someone who's going to attack us." And I was like, "Oh, do you?" Just as a reference, I have 5 years of martial arts under my belt. I know how to take care of myself. I don't need someone taking care of me. But I wanted to see where that went, and he was like, "Yeah, I just need to break a guy's knees. I have done it before. I know exactly, like, if you break a guy's knees, they never heal properly." And I just thought that was way too graphic for me. And those were like the 2 biggest red flags for me, that he had like a taste for violence, and that was like part of his active thoughts, that he would bring it up on a date where he met a girl for the first time. It was really weird. I didn't like it. And that's why we never went out on a second date. Also, he was still getting over this other girl who he had broken up with, and he wasn't ready to keep dating. I probably would have given it another shot if he had wanted to. I just didn't, we drifted apart. But those were 2 really big red flags for me. And for some reason I keep attracting guys like that. I don't know why. The honourable mentions I would like to mention. One guy I met off Tinder, I met in person, and it's given me the biggest anxiety about meeting people in person. It was actually the first day I decided not to wear a hijab. I had taken off the hijab for the first time that day, and I was actually wearing it around him. I had taken it off earlier and I had put it back on. And it was a Somali guy, and he had an interest in me because I don't know, I guess because I had big boobs. And he liked that, and he decided, we were volunteering together, by the way. He was a volunteer at a community youth group. He had decided that the most appropriate thing for him to do would be to lead me away to a back room and attempt to stick his tongue down my throat. And I was like, get the fuck away from me. What the fuck? What were you... If you are watching right now, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, in what world is that okay? I'm sorry. In what world is that okay? But yeah, he gets an honourable mention, and the second guy I wanted to do an honourable mention for was actually a guy that I spoke to on Tinder for like 20 minutes of tops, and I was like, this is too fucking weird. Okay, so this guy, he was a doctor who was, he was like almost finished being, training to be a doctor, and he was going to work for he was currently working for the NHS, and he would be still working now in the NHS. Because they work for like 2 or 3 years in the NHS before they can move on to private facilities, because NHS covers some of their university fees. And he was like, I've never felt so like uncomfortable from someone texting something to me. He was so sexually aggressive, and he made me feel so uncomfortable and so violated. He was saying things like he wanted to fuck me in the middle of the street and things like that. And I was like, okay, this guy just needs to be blocked entirely. I don't know if that's like a trait. It just scares me that guy's a doctor who works in the NHS. Like, that terrifies me. If I saw him in a local hospital, I would fucking run, because the chills that I got that day. I deleted Tinder. I deleted Tinder for 5 whole days before going like, okay, I can go back now. And the last and final, number 1 in my spot of one of the worst people I've ever dated in my life. He is someone we haven't referred to as the sinner yet, but because we refer to the other one as the saint, we're going to refer to this one as the sinner. I don't want to say his name. I hope he's doing better. Honestly, I hope he's sorted his shit out. He was maybe like a couple of months older than me. He would be about 25 now. But when I was dating him, this was early last year. It was like in March of last year. Oh, it was exactly last year. That I had met him, and he was from the city over from London. He was in Reading, and I used to take tickets out to go and see him. And he was actually the first guy I dated after breaking up, but in general as well, he was the first guy I actually dated. And in all honesty, looking back, I didn't see any of the warning signs, but while I was there, while I dated him for the first time, it felt like a really nice date. It was a lovely first impression date that I really didn't expect to turn out how it did. Because we really connected. It was very spontaneous. I had met him maybe like a week, not even a week, I think like a few days before I went on this date. I was talking to him, and I thought I would, invest in this person. And our first date is that I went to Reading and we went bowling. We went bowling, and then we went for dinner, and it was really nice, actually. He had opted to pay for the meal, and he paid for everything that day. I went back to his place. I actually said like a lot of my story to him, like my whole family situation, my whole dating life situation. I told him it was my first date, which was probably not the best thing to do, given that he very much used me, and I was a dumb person for thinking that he wouldn't do that. And I had this wonderful first date. I had this wonderful impression of him, and he just went off the grid for God knows how long. I think it was about a month. He went completely off the grid. He just thought it was moving too fast. He just wanted nothing to do with me. And then he decided to come back and give me another chance. Not his words, I'm paraphrasing. So this first date, I had slept with him, because I hadn't slept with anyone in a very long time. I started having sex when I was 22. I was 23, and I hadn't had sex since. So I had slept with him. I didn't think too much of it. I had slept with him. It was fine. The second time I met up with him, we had decided to like meet up at a bar. We were drinking, and he had booked a hotel for the night so that I would stay over, because it's Reading, and his whole reasoning was that you can't do everything in one day, so come and stay over and you can leave the next day. And we honestly had a great night, had a perfect night. We drank, we played some games, we wrestled. It was a lot of fun. We watched a lot of YouTube videos, we watched movies, we had great sex that night. And then the next morning, it was just like he was getting rid of me again. And I asked for his number that time because we were just conversing through Snapchat, since the beginning. And I was like, can I have your number? And he was kind of like, oh, we'll do something nice. We won't just have sex the next time. We'll go to Legoland or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, you know, we'll do a family thing. You know, you can meet my family and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, that sounds really promising. Like, he was trying to build a relationship with me. So moving on to the next time, it's been 30 minutes already. If you're still here by this point, you are an A-grade fan. But we move on to the third time, and this was like another 2 months down the line. I had spoken to so many friends about this because I had so many hang-ups about the fact that he was doing this. One of my best friends was like, look, he's not interested in me, even though she's only like a few years older than me. She just has way more life experience. She kind of said, I dated a guy like this. He turned out to be married. Be wary. And I wanted to block him, but there was part of me that was just like, I need to know what this guy's deal is. So I waited for the sinner to come to me. So he was kind of like, hey, how you doing? And I was kind of like, okay, get out of fucktown. Like, what the fuck is this? Why are you taking so, like, and initially he was like, oh, it's just been busy at work. I am sorry. If you are so busy that you cannot text me, you cannot text me in 2 months. Boy, get the fuck out of my face. So we start texting, and he starts explaining himself. I'm like, okay, what is this? Because I was under the impression that I was getting the relationship package, and it just looks like it's the fuck package. It's what it looks like. And he was like, okay, I'll come clean. So he started telling me about how he just wanted women to feel like they were on a date. Like, he wanted the responsibility of the boyfriend, but he didn't want to be committed to anyone. And I was like, okay, am I the only one? There were 6 other fucking girls. There were 6 other girls that he was doing this to at the same time. And I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Because I had bought like nice lingerie for him. I had, we had tried a lot of things. He was very open with me about other things. He showed this vulnerable side to me. I thought that, I don't know, I'm dumb. I'm really stupid for thinking that this was someone that I could trust. But at the end of it, I was kind of like, I'm going to need a few days to process this. You need to leave me alone, otherwise I'm cursing you the fuck out. I am flaming you on every single social media outlet I have, because I cannot process this. After a couple of days, it was, in my head, I was kind of like, I can do this. I can do this as a casual thing. I just don't like the fact that you lied to me. And he was like, no, I get that, and I'm sorry. And I was going to meet him a 4th time, but I think that weekend he got really ill, and he didn't want to see me, and that was actually the weekend I met my current boyfriend. So it worked out fine. But he contacted me, I think, another month down the line, and I had told him, I have a boyfriend now, I can't do this. And he was like, oh, okay, fine. And then we kept talking, and, we had a lot of similar interests. He was into a lot of the same shows that I was, and he liked anime a lot, so we would talk about that. And he would just, like, I think there was this random day where he was just like, what you doing? And I know what that's code for. I've sexted for 3 years. I was in an online relationship. I know what that line means. And I was like, is sex the only thing you fucking think about with me? Like, is that the only... I've told you that I am in a committed relationship. And he was like, alright, I'm sorry, I won't bring it up again. And I was like, no, this is the last time. I'm done. You're blocked. I'm finished. So that was my 5 weirdest things that happened while I was dating people. And I haven't dated around a whole bunch. I've dated maybe like, besides the people I am in a relationship with, or have been in a relationship with, I've only dated like 10 to 12 people. I haven't dated around a whole bunch. I haven't really explored my sexuality. I'm sure there'll be, Ed is a pretty solid guy. I doubt that I'll be dating again anytime soon. But if, God forbid, it happens again, I'm sure I will have plenty of other stories. But those were the weirdest things that ever happened, and it made me realize my own, like, little petty things that I had in my head, that I can't date people who dress like toddlers, or support specific teams, or have no interests, or don't have a fucking IQ. But it was a really interesting thing for me to do, especially having been segregated for so long, which leads us on into the comments and the questions that you guys have, that I will be answering now. And I will be getting slightly more serious as we go down the list, so we'll start with the less serious questions. I know it's been 40 minutes, I apologise. Put up with it. So the first one is from the Donnie Darko 1, at the Donnie Darko 1, and he asked, movie dates or not? Listen, I love watching movies, especially kids movies, because they're great. I love cartoons. But first date cannot be a movie date. That is an immediate red flag for me, because you don't want to talk to the other person if you want to go on a movie date. Unless you go to watch a terrible movie, then you will bond on something, because you'll be laughing and talking throughout the whole thing. But if you are going to watch a movie that you actually want to watch, there's no point in me going to get to know somebody if I'm not going to talk to them. That is my opinion. I think that you have to really know someone before you go to see a movie with them. That's all I'm saying. Because you don't know any of their movie habits. I have a lot of pet peeves about movies. And people have a lot of pet peeves about me in movies. So, I mean, it's a really big deal for me, clearly. Salsa Nips, or at Salsa Nips, or Philip is one of my good friends. Hi, Philip. What is your most awkward moment? Probably the moment I realized that I can't date someone who doesn't dress very well. That was the most awkward, because he led me into a forest, and I was kind of like, I want to fucking leave. Next question is from at SunnyBoy69 about interfaith dating. So I don't have too many. So my first boyfriend, whom I had a long distance relationship with, he was non-religious. Since then, I've only dated one religious-ish person who is my current boyfriend. He's a Christian. He doesn't really go to church, but he believes in God, and he believes in Jesus, and he believes in an afterlife. I would say it's pretty successful. I would not typically date someone who was exactly like me, because one of me is enough for me to deal with. And honestly, I'm just the worst person to be around sometimes. I hate being by myself for that reason on its own. So it just makes sense for me to, find someone who has different interests. I don't really talk about religion with my current boyfriend, mainly because I don't want it to be my whole life. And I feel like if I did date someone who had like a very similar experience to me, that would be the only thing we would bond over. So yeah, I would typically say that interfaith marriages work if the faith part isn't too serious. Heretical Grey and at Staunch A, Heretical Grey asked, how do we do this? And Staunch A said alcohol, which I think is a fairly good answer. You just gotta take that leap of faith. You just gotta go for it. I almost got murdered in a forest. You can do it. Go for it. Live your dreams. Believe in yourself. At Quotes Forbidden asked about Islamic virginity and what I think about, those communities really guarding virginity. It's really dumb, because male virginity isn't as policed as female virginity, and I think it has a lot to do with, keeping the family honor or whatever the fuck. It's really dumb. It's really stupid. People have sex, and the one thing that I continue to not understand, having been arranged married and having been segregated my entire life, up until I left, was the fact that people always keep you away from strangers because there's such a fear that they're going to do something to you, but they marry you to a stranger. It is the dumbest fucking idea on the planet, and it should stop. People need to know who the fuck they are seeing. People need to know who the fuck they are marrying. People need to know who the fuck is going to raise their children. I am so glad. I am so glad that I refused to have an arranged marriage. I am so glad. I've done a video on arranged marriage. If you want to see that, I'll leave that in the description. But it's the fucking worst, and I hate it. And I hate that you are in that situation where your virginity is being policed because people can't fathom you having sex with someone else that you're not married to. It is weird to me. It is weird to me, especially now, given that I am no longer a virgin. At Amema_94, Amema, I love you. Thank you. Everybody please go follow her because she is amazing. Did you find it challenging to navigate dating after segregation? Yes, I did. I still cannot be approached by a man with flirtatious intentions. And not just because I'm in a relationship, even before. When I was single, I could not be approached. And my friends can vouch for this. When I get drunk, especially, I hate being hit on. My inner Muslim just puts their guard up and is just like, get the fuck out of my face. I don't want your attention. I'm here to have a good time. Stop ruining things for me. I have exclusively gone to bars where I know people, or just to gay bars. I hate being hit on, and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with it. Men who are not Muslims and who aren't lowering their fucking gaze or whatever the fuck, they are painted in such a negative light in Islamic schools and in Islamic teachings, because we're taught that they're just out here looking to rape y'all. They're just out here trying to rape everybody. So I think part of that has embedded itself into my psyche. I'm definitely better at communicating with men, and I'm not as intimidated by them as I was when I first left my house. But I definitely still can't be hit on, and I'm glad that I don't need to be, because I have a boyfriend and I can just use that excuse. Before that, I would literally wear a ring on my finger to ward all the men off. Not that I need help. I mean, I don't get hit on a lot. And Hope Springs 100 asked me, what do I think about dating being haram? I think it's silly. And honestly, the dating game has sort of permeated through the Muslim community with like apps like Muzmatch and Shadi.com and all of that. Definitely online dating has become a thing. I know one of my cousins got married through that. Like I think they met in person, but they only communicated through an app like WhatsApp or whatever. So dating has become more commonplace, especially if we're talking like long distance. It's definitely become more commonplace, and honestly, I think it's for the best. I think it's really stupid, given the background that I came from, and given knowing what my dad was like, and what my mum would have chosen if, you know, she had known what my dad was like. Like, I could not fathom now getting married to someone that I did not know every single thing about, you know? And arranged marriage is always painted in a way that's like, oh, you'll get to know them when you marry them. No. Know the people you marry before you get married to them. Please, for your own safety, for your own, like, you're better off knowing than not knowing. Don't get married to people you don't know. End of story. This is my video. I know it's a very long video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave your comments down below. Like, share, subscribe. And if you have any questions, let me know. And if you like this new chirpy me doing happy videos, also let me know. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.